how do we dialogue with Muslims? Now, it may not be very apparent for us in Canada, where the majority are Christian, or at least of Christian background, but it's very different in places where there is a Muslim majority. Joining me now to talk about this and about living on the island of Mindanao, the Philippines, is Cardinal Orlando Quevedo, the Archbishop of Cotabato. But first, here's the Cardinal speaking about interreligious dialogue.
We come together as a community of Muslims and Christians on social issues, justice and peace. When we have problems of corruption, we come together to rally, to petition, to talk with those who are involved. Or the ecology, poverty and development, criminality in the area, and the criminals are Christians and Muslims. So we come together and discuss and find out what we can do about issues of justice, security, the environment, poverty. Especially in Cotabato, floods because of the river, floods because of the destruction of forests, and floods because of the mining corporations that are in the mountains. And in times of disasters, we also come together to help one another.
That was Cardinal Orlando Quevedo of the Philippines speaking about interreligious dialogue, and Cardinal Quevedo joins me now. Welcome, Cardinal.
Thank you.
So you live on an island called Mindanao in the Philippines. Tell me about Mindanao.
Mindanao is generally divided into two parts. Most of the island of Mindanao is mostly Christian, but in the southern part of Mindanao, you have several provinces and cities and islands that are Muslim.
Okay.
In my own diocese is one of the provinces that I cover is probably 90% Muslim.
Really? So that's the city of Cotabato?
The city of Cotabato is itself 60% Muslim.
Wow.
And the province where it is located is Mindanao, and it is part of what is called the Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao.
Really? Now, we think of the Philippines, we think it's a predominantly, it's a majority Catholic country. We think it's a Christian country. So how does that work when you have a city or a region that is mostly Muslim in a Catholic country? Does it work?
Well, yes, it works. In fact, our political leaders are Muslims. Few are Christians
in the province,
in the city.
Okay.
And since the autonomous region, the Mindanao belongs to the autonomous region, most of the regional officials, governor, for instance, would be Muslim.
Right.
And it's not something that I am afraid about. It's not something that that's not surprising.
Right.
Yeah. And I have lived with it throughout my professional life.
So it's normal Muslims, Christians working together.
And we have had no problem with freedom of worship and religion.
Okay.
In fact, many of the Muslim young people would go to the Catholic schools to study in high school, elementary, and the university, which is Catholic. It's called Notre Dame University.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, run by the Oblates of Mary Immaculate, and that's in the city.
Right, you were rector of that university, president of that university. Now, I know you didn't grow up in Mindanao, you grew up somewhere else in the Philippines, but did you have any contact with Muslims while you were growing up or as a child?
No, when we came from the northern part of the Philippines, and we migrated to South Cotabato. And South Cotabato is mostly Christian.
Okay.
But the mayor at that time, when we arrived, when I was 8 years old, was a Muslim.
Right.
That was my first contact with a Muslim. I saw him, and he had 2 pistols.
Really?
Yeah, he was appointed by the government to be the mayor.
Right.
And he was a very, very good person, good friend of my father. But I remember he has 2 pistols, like the cowboys of Texas.
Right.
I said, wow.
Probably because he was mayor. Not
the mayor,
yes.
But that is also, I think that at that time, that was also part of the identity of someone who is powerful.
Yeah. Now, we're talking about dialogue, really. There's a difference, I would think, between coexistence or living together and dialogue. Do you see a difference between those two things?
Living together is one level of dialogue.
Okay.
There are, in my experience as a bishop, there are three levels of dialogue that I am familiar with. The dialogue of religious leaders,
Yes.
of ulama, imams, and bishops together, and that can take the form of what you call a dialogue of theological exchange.
Right.
Yeah. We can talk about Mary in the Bible and Mary in the Quran. We can talk about environment and change according to the Quran and the creation of the world in the scriptures.
Right.
That we can exchange, and we see convergences about that.
Right.
That's the theological exchange among the top leader. Then there is also a level of sharing religious experiences.
Okay.
When ordinary people can share with one another, oh, how did you celebrate this Ramadan?
Right.
Yeah. And then they can say, oh, I think I'll join you in that Ramadan. And
Right.
the Christian might say,
Yes.
this is what, because we also have some practice of fasting and abstinence, but yours is one whole month. I think maybe I can join you in spirit.
Right.
That's a religious experience. And then somebody says, someone will say, how about that devotion to Our Lady you're talking about, Yeah, we have the rosary and so on and so forth.
So they might want to
You
share.
have the beads, the rosary beads, you have
Yes.
the Muslim beads,
Right.
prayer beads. Similar, but the rosary is about Mary and Jesus, the mysteries there. Oh, I see. Then they can see it's a religious experience. Or what do you do when you get sick?
Yes.
Yeah, so these are, how do you pray when you get sick?
Right.
That kind. So that's sharing of religious experiences. And then a level is that you said coexistence.
Living together.
But not only coexistence, working together.
Yes.
Working together. And that is the most, I see that happening among housewives, people going to the market,
Right.
buying and selling, and your favorite fish vendor might be a Muslim, So you go to that, and like I said, you act as neighbors and friends and respect one another.
Yeah.
You don't speak about, oh, I'm not going to sell to you because you're a Christian.
Right. Or you're not speaking about theology either.
Yeah. The most, I think the most effective one of dialogue of life is among the students. Because many, as I said, many Muslims go to Catholic schools, and there they meet their Catholic counterparts, and they play together, they pray together, they study together.
Yeah.
And sometimes they fall in love with one another.
I was going to ask you, that's another level of dialogue. You must have a lot of interreligious
not
marriages.
only dialogue, but communion, communion of love and communion of marriage.
Yes.
They begin to respect one another.
Why do you think, I mean, maybe you don't experience this in Cotabato where you live, but at least in North America, maybe in Europe, there's a level of fear of dialogue, specifically with Muslims or with Islam. Why do you think there is that fear?
I do not know about fear of dialogue because the fear is there because of movements of migration, and perhaps the migration pushes people from the Middle East to our Muslims to other parts.
Right.
That's a natural form. But some people suspect that there is an ideological motive for this.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure whether there is there has been meeting of the Ummah, the brotherhood, Muslim brotherhood, to say this is what we will do to take over the world. I think that's, well, for me it's paranoid.
Yes.
But in the Philippines, there are fears and suspicions in an area like Cotabato, which are not expressed, both by Muslims and Christians.
Right.
They live together, they are friends with one another, but deep down, if there is a choice of leader, the Muslim will choose the Muslim leader,
Right.
and the Christian might choose the candidate who is a Christian.
Right.
But at the end, whoever wins, whether Muslim or Christian, is someone they will respect and
Yeah,
obey.
I guess it's mostly a level of of going with what you know,
Yeah.
as opposed to a mistrust for what is different.
But some of this mistrust, bias, and prejudice are sometimes based on negative experiences with the other.
Right.
The other. And this negative experience, not only the basis, but we'll keep that bias and prejudice in the heart.
Right.
And peace should be a peace that comes from the heart and not from peace agreements.
Yes. Okay, we're going to take a little break, but it's a short break. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. And in particular, we're going to look at why Pope Francis is calling us to dialogue. So stay tuned.
First missionary oblates in Canada walked and lived among the peoples of the far north. The same is true for Father Gerard Monjo and his companions in the Philippines. They went to tell the story of Jesus to the poor Christian farmers in southern Philippines. They went and among the Muslims in southern Mindanao.
We're speaking with Cardinal Orlando Quevedo of the Philippines. Cardinal Quevedo is a missionary oblate of Mary Immaculate, and that's why he's in Canada, to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the missionary oblates. And we just saw some images of that anniversary Mass to conclude the year of celebrations, which happened recently. Now, I'm curious to know how being a missionary is one thing, but being a missionary oblate of Mary Immaculate, how that prepared you for this, can I say, career in dialogue?
Yeah. We are sometimes called missionaries in difficult missions.
Right.
And when the oblates from Canada and America went to the Philippines, before and after the war, Second World War, they went to the poor sections of the Philippines. And that poor sections would be among the poor Christian farmers who migrated from the north and central part of the Philippines to Mindanao. And then the other phases of the poor would be the Muslims. They are a group that is marginalized, underdeveloped, and so we thought that we should go there. These difficult missions.
Right.
Among the islands of Sulu and Tawi-Tawi, that's mostly Muslim. And when there was a choice between of dividing the empire province of Cotabato into two, we chose the more difficult ones.
Right.
That would be among the Muslims.
Right.
And the other half of the empire province was given to another congregation.
Okay.
And so we have that, and we continue to work in that. I don't think we ever will transfer.
When you say that you do work with that population or mission, you're not talking about, I mean, it's evangelization, but you're not trying to convert them. What kind of work would you do that is mission work?
Mission work is not only something spiritual, you know? Total evangelization or integral evangelization is both spiritual and material.
Yeah.
You know, that's why Jesus healed the sick and all that. You know, the evangelization is liberation from everything that oppresses the human person. Paul VI said that, and among those is ignorance. Among those is sickness. So we provide help to the poor people, including Muslims, education-wise, social development, and simply by being with them.
Right.
Not to proselytize, not to convert, but to tell the story of Jesus to them, not by words, but by actions of compassion and mercy.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Yeah, the oblates do in the South.
Right, and I presume that as church, as the Catholic Church, the leadership is able to lead in that area of dialogue and also when there are conflicts.
Surely.
I heard I heard that you were involved in the peace agreement between the government and a Muslim,
Moro
I guess it was a
Islamic Liberation,
rebel group. Tell me a little bit about that and how the church got involved.
Some people think of me as Cardinal of Peace.
Okay.
Well, there is some basis to that which I do not wish to really explicitate very much, but I work behind the scenes. The peace panels of government and the peace of government and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front.
Yes.
If there is any problem that they wish see in the peace process, one group or the other or both groups would ask me
Because they
what
trusted you.
yes. What my thoughts are regarding this.
Right.
That they know that I am both, not simply government, but for all the people. So they ask me, I suggest ways of going around the impasse or breaking the impasse of the peace agreement. And sometimes they would say that it's a good idea. Very often when they come together, the peace panels, the rebel group and the government group, they say, we are going to meet in Kuala Lumpur. Can you pray special prayers for us? And that would be coming from both groups. And why is this? Well, I think they see me as someone who is a friend of both groups.
Yeah.
And many of the leaders of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front studied in Catholic schools, in our Notre Dame schools. And the chair who met the Holy Father last day of prayer, World Day of Prayer of Assisi,
Yes.
Chair Murad, was a student for 4 years in Notre Dame University.
Wow.
And I was a teacher there at that time. So they are close to me.
Interesting. Now, you were also a member of the Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about the work of that dicastery?
The interreligious dialogue, unfortunately, I have not attended or not invited to any of the sessions so far.
Okay.
But my contribution to that would be something quite different. The dicastery, from the outside, it seems to be more focused on the Middle East, relationships in the Middle East, peace in the Middle East. My contribution, it would be that the interreligious dialogue with Muslims in Asia would take a different tack. It is different because you have not only Christians, Muslims, but we have Buddhists and Hindus there. So interreligious dialogue with other groups, and with the Muslims in particular, it is different because these groups are not terrorists, not unlike Syria and they are rebel groups, and the terrorist groups are those that are burning churches and so on and so forth, but they are not the rebel groups. So there has to be a different approach of interreligious dialogue with those.
Right. And I presume that, I mean, most Muslims are not rebels or terrorists, so there's that, you know, as you mentioned, the person in the market or your co-worker, that level of dialogue.
But you know, the Holy Father,
the
Holy Father was criticized because of that. But he made a clear distinction that the ordinary Moro or Islam is not the type who would throw bombs.
Why do you think the Holy Father then is reminding us of the importance of dialogue and what that means for, I guess, the average Christian?
Dialogue is one of the approaches of evangelization. You know? It is not only preaching, but it is also relating with others. I think interreligious makes that possible. If you do not dialogue with another person who might think differently from you, then there is no way that you can be friends. And there is no way for the humankind to be united. But if you dialogue with even your enemies, especially your enemies, so consider yourself
or those
enemy,
who are different.
Different of faith, different faith, then the unity of humankind becomes possible by simply talking, conversing as a human being with one another. And that is part of the evangelization process.
Yes.
The same thing is true with social development. It's part of the evangelization process.
Yes.
It's not a preparation tool. So the doctrine of the church on evangelization takes different approaches at different times and to different peoples. It could be explicit proclamation, it could be religious dialogue, it could be social development.
Okay, well, I think that's a good place to end. Thank you so much for taking time off your busy schedule to visit us here and to share a little bit about this topic with us today.
Thank you very much.
I've been speaking with Cardinal Orlando Quevedo of Cotabato, the Philippines. We've been talking about interreligious dialogue. You've heard from him, now it's time to hear from you. Send us your comments, your ideas via email, perspectives@saltandlighttv.org, or also via Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for being with us, and may God continue to bless you and your home.